Mr. Congressman Pfluger serves in the 11th Congressional District, ranging from Midland, Odessa, San Angelo, Llano, Killeen, Brownwood. He is a proud husband to Camille, proud father to 3 lovely daughters, lives here in San Angelo, Texas, is a graduate of San Angelo Central High School, go Bobcats, and a graduate of the U.S. Air Force Academy. He's a decorative fighter pilot. He has served on the National Security Council. And one thing he does well is he goes up there to D.C. and he represents our conservative Christian values out here in West Texas and does it well. We all know that. So, he's had the pleasure of serving on the House Committee of Homeland Security and founded the Mach 1 Caucus and the Texas Ag Task Force. So, without further ado, I would like to introduce my friend, Congressman August Pfluger.
We have a great group of elected leaders here, including Judge Lane Carter, who's doing a wonderful job for Tom Green County. And I don't want to forget anybody. Drew Darby is here. We've got a number of elected officials. If you are elected, will you please stand up? I'd like to recognize you and thank you. I say this at almost every town hall, but if we would just do it like Tom Green County, like San Angelo, like West Texas, we wouldn't have to have town halls because there wouldn't be issues in D.C. Lane, thank you for the kind introduction. Darcy, thank you for the prayer. I keyed in on 2 words you said: answers that are clear and understandable. That is the purpose of a town hall, and I pray that I will answer them clear and in an understandable way. But how's everybody feeling tonight? Feeling pretty good? I mean, I'm feeling good. I want to deliver a message of hope, a message of optimism, a message of the last 4 years of prayers that I think, from my perspective, have been answered. But that doesn't mean the work. We got a lot of work to do, and I want to tell you about that work. I want to, set kind of what I see as the guidelines and the agenda that we have, and the things that I believe we're going to have to work on. So, 3 things that I kind of want to start with and talk about as we get going tonight. Number 1, what did this election mean for our country? What is that mandate? What is the agenda? Number 2, as we enter this period of transition, there is still work left to be done in Washington, D.C. at the end of the year. But there's also work as a transition of peaceful transition of power. This is something that makes our country the most unique form of governance in the world. For 248 years, we've had a peaceful transition of power. And other governments have tried to replicate that. And I want to tell you what it means in practical terms and give you some opinions that I'm seeing. And then number 3, I want to tell you about a unique platform that I'm going to have as chairman of the Republican Study Committee. I was elected by my peers, by 175 Republicans, to be the chairman of the largest organized policy group for conservative policy in Washington, D.C. And I'll tell you about what that means and what it means for Washington, D.C. Before we get into that, let me introduce my biggest supporter, my best friend, somebody who, if I didn't have her support, if I didn't have, let me tell you, when she gives me a to-do list at home of the kids need to be here, and this is when the activities start, I don't know how she does it. I really don't know how she does it. My job in D.C. is busy, but it's not near as busy as my wife. So this is my wife, Camille. She doesn't get to come to very many town halls because she's busy with the kids. We have a 17-year-old who was able to help out. Secondly, before we get into that, here's what I want to do, is every time we have a town hall, I've started with what I call a good news story. A lot of things to complain about, a lot of things that we can talk about that, we want to make better. That's why everybody's here, because you all are, I know everybody in this room is a community leader. You have served in ways that are unimaginable. You have volunteered, you have done things that make a difference in our community. And we're going to talk about hard things tonight too, but let's talk about something good. We have somebody in our midst who I have met and who has, for the last 4 years, has gone to naturalization ceremonies here in San Angelo and has presented a medal, a little medallion that really speaks to the fact that being a citizen is an honor in this country. That it really is everything. When you look at this flag, we're not one race, we're not one religion, we're not one language. You know, people come here from all over. And the reason they come here is because of this flag, because of what it stands for, because it stands for patriotism, because it stands for the fact that we agree to abide by a certain rule of law, that we agree that we'll put differences aside when the laws are passed, that we will agree to be a part of a country that is bigger than just being of the same religion or being a nation. If you want to think about it, we're a country that has many nationalities that have come together for the purpose of living the American dream. So this person amongst us tonight has gone to naturalization ceremonies and has presented this medallion to our new citizens. And at times you'll see 40 or 50 people that have gone through the process legally to be a citizen, have come here because they love this country, have taken an oath. And I guarantee you, if you put their knowledge of this country up against anybody in this room, watch out. Because they know more, because they've studied it. They had to take a test. And so what I would like is for us to recognize Elaine Moore. Elaine, will you please come up here? Elaine has gone out of her way at every naturalization ceremony to give this medallion to our new citizens, to the newest citizens of this country, to let them know that we care about how much they care about this country. And Elaine, on behalf of the 11th Congressional District, this isn't just me, this is 750,000 people that go from Odessa to Killeen, 20 counties. We want to tell you, job well done, and we are thankful for your devotion to these new citizens. Thank you. One more. Wednesday, December 3rd.
3rd or 4th. Anyway, ASU.
Pretty neat to see those in our community who care so much. Elaine, thanks for being here tonight. That was a surprise, which some people don't like the surprises of being called up in the front. Let's talk about what this election meant on November 5th. I saw some of you at our election night watch party. And as we watched through the night, first off, I was so thankful by about 2 o'clock in the morning that we started to see some of these states that had called it. Of course, there's California, who apparently can't count. And they're still counting.
Still?
But
Having the fingers and toes.
yeah, that's right. That doesn't work in our tax office, does it? But you saw these states, these swing states, that they started to go for Trump. Places like Pennsylvania and Ohio, and even into Arizona and Nevada, as the couple days went on. And I started to kind of reflect on what did it mean. And I've had these town halls here. The last one we did was at the Cactus. Every county I represent, we go and we sit and have discussions. And there has been anger and resentment and why can't we get this done? And it's absolutely maddening on the border. The lack of border security that we have, the fact that we've had people like Elaine that go and present a medallion to our citizens, new citizens, people who do it correctly, who want to be here because they want the rule of law. They're coming from countries where we don't have the rule of law. A banana republic, somewhere in a different part of the world, that they are escaping a system of governance that doesn't work because they want this one. And I think that on November 5th, that night, what we saw loud and clear was people were sick and tired of an open border with hundreds of thousands of gang-affiliated people, terrorists that have come into this country, people that are here that don't believe in following the rules. We saw loud and clear on November 5th that there is a mandate, I think first and foremost, for us to reestablish the security, not just at our southern border, but also at our northern border, to reestablish the rule of law. And if you ask me, and I've questioned Mayorkas multiple times, some people say, well, they just want these people to come in and vote for the Democrat Party. No, I think that may be tangential to it. But I think the real reason that they did this, that they didn't enforce the rules and the laws, the things that we already have on the books, was so they could deconstruct the rule of law. And if you can do it at the southern border, and you can say, come on in, here's a notice to appear. You know how many people appear? We're talking 5% or less. If you can do it with that, then the executive branch can do anything they want. And they did that for 10 million people. And I think first and foremost, loud and clear, that there was a mandate to re-secure the border. And that was spoken loud and clear. President Trump was elected to come in first and foremost and do that. Number two, how about our economy? Anybody sick and tired of high prices? The stock market immediately went up. The outlook, the economic outlook for investments immediately improved. People have the confidence in what Donald Trump knows economically, what his business interests have been, the fact that he cares greatly about lowering the cost for every American, not just the wealthy, but think about the Main Street businesses that, because of the tax cuts that we had in 2017, allowed people to go out and start a business, gave them access to loans, gave them access to an investment horizon that set the conditions for them to live the American dream. And I think the fact that he has that ability to cut through the chaff, to get right to the heart of the matter, and he knows how to spur that economic investment, that speaks volumes about the mandate, which is to get us back to a point where people can own a home. Let's get Americans back to the point of view where if you want to live that American dream and you want to work hard, that you've got access to capital, that you don't have to fill out 100 pages. Has anybody gone for a loan lately? Okay. When you go for that loan, how many pages are you filling out? I mean, it's a little overwhelming.
I just bought a house, so. Yeah.
And thankfully, some can still do that. But how about the new couple, the 20-something-year-old couple with a baby that wants to get out of an apartment and have that American dream and buy a home? They've been targeted. They've been targeted by a government that doesn't allow them to do that. That mandate on November 5th said, let's get back to allowing Americans to buy a home. That is uniquely American. That is something that we should be proud of. And if you want to do it, you want to live that dream, let's let you go do that. But that involves having an economy that is strong, having an economy that is not built on a paper tiger where you have regulations that are overreaching. Speaking of overreaching regulations, I think number 3 in the mandate that we saw on November 5th was cutting the regulations from a government that is reaching into your private lives and threatening to tell you that you can't have a gas stove anymore. To tell you that you need to drive an electric vehicle. When you go get a license plate downtown, we shouldn't have to be forced into an electric vehicle. You should have a choice. If you want an EV, I'm not going to make you raise your hand in this room, don't worry. But if you want to buy an EV, go buy it. If it fits your lifestyle and that's what you want to do, then do that. But for me, internal combustion, that's the way I'm going, and I want that choice. And I've been fighting for 4 years against an administration that was overreaching. And that's important because I represent Midland and Odessa, the heart and soul of American energy. Just over there, 6 million barrels. And they're telling us, well, we've got to cut emissions. We've been cutting emissions. And those oil and gas companies over there care greatly about doing it better. Yes, some government regulation is okay, but guess who should pass those laws? We should. In the House of Representatives. And I should stand before you and say, this is what we passed, and you should provide me feedback. But instead, what's happened is the executive branch, the EPA, the Department of Energy, and all these agencies have written regulations into law. How many town halls do those guys do here? None. The mandate was loud and clear about government regulations. We don't want them. There's certain agencies we need to get rid of. There's certain people, there's government offices, there's things that are inefficient. Let's not have those. Let's do the bidding of the American people in a smart way, in a safe way, but not in an overreaching way. I think that was spoken loud and clear. And lastly, I think the mandate, and this is important, and for all the veterans in the room, we all stand up real quick. I want to recognize you. Let's give them a round of applause. It's pretty fitting that we're in the VFW. I thank you for hosting us tonight. But when you look back on your time in the service and you look at the military today, I'm worried. I'm a veteran myself. I'm worried about where our military is. Are we focused on lethality, on readiness, on being warriors? Or are we focused on a social experiment that detracts from the mission and doesn't actually support our families? And I think the latter, unfortunately, is true. We need to regain focus. For our airmen and our guardians, that's what they call the Space Force, that are stationed here at Goodfellow, that are going through the top-notch intelligence training, the best intelligence training in the world. We want them to leave San Angelo, to graduate from Goodfellow, to go into the service, and to be ready, if needed, to fight our nation's wars. I hope we don't have to. In fact, what I hope is, and I think this is true, because people around the world, enemies around the world, adversaries around the world, they fear Donald Trump. They fear him. Sometimes the tweets, you see, there's reason to fear. Okay? But they fear him. And we want that to happen because we don't want to get involved in wars. We want deterrence to work. But it hasn't worked over the last 4 years. And the mandate was loud and clear on November 5th. Reestablish the United States in the rightful position around the world, where our enemies fear us, where our allies respect us. They know that when we say something, we're going to follow through on it. And I feel like we're there. You can already see people starting to kind of come into line. I know that they're going to work hard. And this leads me into the second point, which is what are we doing in the next couple of weeks in a transition period? What's happening? You see the speed by which the cabinet has been named. They're not messing around. We're in a pretty unique position. President Trump was elected in 2016. He took office in 2017. We had 4 years where the economy was good, our national security. I was flying combat missions when he took over. And it was an immediate change from Obama to Trump. The rules of engagement were better. Commanders were delegated authorities that they didn't have under Obama. The enemies, like Syria, remember when they used chemical weapons, when Bashar al-Assad used chemical weapons? They feared us because Trump stuck to his word. We're going to get back to that. And the cabinet has been picked. And they're going to go through a confirmation process. But that cabinet is there for a reason. They are going to carry out the mandate that was given by the American public in every single swing state. The most electoral votes. Has anybody watched Reagan? It's a good movie, isn't it? We just watched it. And this was the most electoral votes from a Republican since Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
And that is a loud and clear mandate from the American people to the president to get business handled.
Amen.
So in the House of Representatives, I spent some time talking to Mike Johnson today, Speaker Mike Johnson. We've got a mandate as well. I've talked to y'all about this. I think we need to get rid of these executive orders and we need to get back to regular order. Passing the laws in the House of Representatives, sending it to the Senate, getting our fiscal house in order, and having the president sign these laws. Now, I want to set some expectations. Linda's always a big fan, and it's nice to have some applause every once in a while. Let's talk about this Doge, okay?
Amen.
Now, there is no question that we have inefficiencies. I've been telling y'all what I'm seeing for 4 years. I mean, we've got some government offices that are just not. I mean, nobody's there. They're not doing anything. And I think guys like Elon Musk. I mean, he's a pretty smart guy. Okay. But I do want to remind y'all, when I've just said we've got to get back to regular order, right? So the executive branch, yes, they are going to make some recommendations on cutting things, but who has the purse strings? We do, okay? I can promise you in the House, and I talked to Mike Johnson about this today, that we are going to be looking at that. We've been trying to cut. Last year, we cut about a percentage out of the budget, and it was like pulling teeth. It was like pulling teeth. We need to do more. But it takes 60 votes in the Senate. We have 53 Republicans, which takes 7 Democrats to come over. Yes, I think the Department of Education has done more harm to our education system than they have done good. Getting 7 Democrat senators to sign on to the complete abolishment and repeal of the Department of Education, I'm going to need y'all's help. Y'all come up to D.C. because we're going to need to talk to those 7 Democrats and tell them why. So setting expectations here, we've got work to do. We've got a lot of work to do. Remember when we said we were going to repeal Obamacare? That was work to get to that point. We were 1 vote short in the Senate. I wasn't even elected at that time. But I want to set the expectation that if we really are going to get back to regular order, that the Department of Government Efficiency will name some projects, but we need to do that work in the House and in the Senate. And y'all know as well as I do what a fight that will be. You know that getting those 7 additional votes to do things like the repeals that are being floated will be a fight. And it's not impossible, but it will be a fight.
Amen.
So how are we going to be helping? How am I going to be helping do this? And this is where the optimism comes in and the hopefulness comes in. Republican Study Committee is the oldest and the largest policy committee. It's 52 years old. It has 175 members. This is the heart and soul. They call it the conservative conscience of Congress. People like Jim Jordan, Mike Johnson, the current Speaker of the House, Steve Scalise, and others were chairman of this group. So I decided about a year ago that this would be a good opportunity, a good organization to lead. We meet every Wednesday. We bring cabinet officials over. We hear conservative policy. We educate our members on what that policy is. And then we go push leadership, the speaker, the leader. We push them in a conservative direction. That's our job. Let's get informed on conservative policy and let's push leadership and hold them accountable for the things that we say we're going to do. So last Friday I was elected as the chairman of this organization. And I'm proud to do that and proud to be the chairman of this because the things that I've talked about tonight, whether it's energy security or border security, those are going to be the first couple of things that we do. We're going to tackle these. We're going to use this organization and this platform to highlight the issues that I see here in West Texas because those are the national issues that we're facing. And it's going to be a good opportunity for us to take a little bit of West Texas to Washington, D.C. So I will keep you up to date. One way that I do that is if you haven't signed up for our Pfluger, does anybody get the Pfluger flyby in here? If you don't, please give us your email address. I'll send you a weekly update, a newsletter on what we're doing.
Got it.
And let you know where I stand on issues, how I'm voting, what the major pieces of legislation are. And I can promise you that beginning on January 3rd, we're going to tackle H.R. 1, which is the energy bill. We're going to tackle H.R. 2, which is the border security bill. And when President Trump takes office on January 20th, we hope to have many pieces of legislation waiting on his desk, ready to be signed to get us back on track. Let me take your questions.
How would you describe the mood in Congress amongst your colleagues, especially since Trump got elected?
It's euphoric.
Wow.
There's a lot of optimism. By the way, it was very tough to hold on to the House. That should tell you how divided politically our country is. We actually are going to end up losing a seat. So at the same time that we had a mandate that we won electorally more swing states, every swing state, we also were fighting for House seats. But the mood is so optimistic and so hopeful. We are so ready and tired of fighting an administration who just didn't care. They weren't reasonable. They didn't care about the rule of law. I'm okay if you're passionate about something and we disagree. But this was beyond that. We are excited to send bills to a Republican-controlled Senate and a Republican White House that can actually affect change. I've never seen the mood like this. I came in during COVID. Remember those times where we were forced to wear a mask and all the rest of the stuff that happened? Proud of our locally elected officials, Judge. Thank you for being reasonable and having a realistic view of how to govern. That didn't happen in Washington, by the way. We're very excited. Very excited. Yes, ma'am.
What do you think the chances are of passing the Social Security Fairness Act of 23 and 24?
I don't know. Again, to the Senate, to the point of the Senate, with 60 votes. Let me study it a little bit more. I think when you look at all of the things economically that we're going to try to do, there's a lot of tax cuts that we want to keep in place. Let me say thank you to Drew Darby, who is right behind you, for what we have done in Texas with regards to property taxes, with what you did with regards to defending our Second Amendment rights, with what you did with regards to protecting life. There's just not many more conservative things you can do in the state of Texas. You did it, and you led on these things. With regards to Social Security, look, can I add one more piece to that, which is, how many educators do we have in the room? Okay. You're probably familiar with the windfall elimination program. Okay,
Yeah.
This is something that I'm a co-sponsor of. We voted on it last week. There were two separate bills. One was led by my colleague Jody Arrington from Lubbock, Texas, which is a very good conservative bill. Another one was previously led by a guy named Graves out of Louisiana, who's going to be retiring. Both of these bills would protect educators and have to do with the other benefits like Social Security that are unfairly targeted for these. We've got to get this program right. So I voted on both of those to help and to get back into balance for that. Let me get back to you on the Social Security Fairness Act and take a look at what some of the senators, the reason I hesitate is because now we have control of the Senate. Are they going to use the same legislative text that we've had in the past 2 years, or are they going to change it up a little bit? And I'll get back to you on that. I think we had a question over here.
I'm asking on behalf of a constituent, but how do you feel about the HR 3312, or aka the Moms Matter Act?
Ooh. I need to probably remind myself. 3312, that's not necessarily in order, but there are over 3,000 pieces of legislation. So tell me a little bit about what it says.
It says,
You guys, this is Zev Davis, and he told me beforehand that he likes to go and get all viewpoints. It sounds good, and I think what conservatives have done is try to lead. President Trump did this in 2017, by the way. He put a huge emphasis on mental health and did something that very few presidents have actually done, which is put resources towards mental health. And I think he really needed those next 4 years to get there. I'll have 2 questions on it, and I'll get back to you on this to see where it stands. But number 1, what is it going to cost us? And number 2, what's the offset for that? And that's my decision matrix when I look at something. Because this sounds good. It sounds like something that we are looking at mental health, studying the morbidity rates, and just from hearing it, sounds like something that we could be getting behind. But what's the target population? How are we going to pay for it? And I appreciate the question. Sounds like a trick question, too.
August, would that be something that would, the HHS secretary would be bringing more information to you that would maybe change that or enhance it?
Absolutely. And this is another, we plugged the Republican Study Committee. These are the kind of things that we will have the cabinet secretaries come and talk to us about and say, here's a program, 3312, was that the number?
HR 3312.
Here's a program that we really need, or that maybe we can do it better, or here's how we can cut costs. And let me show you something within HHS that we haven't been doing well. We're going to cut that. That pays for this. That is the kind of, really the kind of dialogue we're going to have. Thank you, Linda. Yes, sir. And I'll come over here.
You and the Republican Party intend to abolish the Department of Education and send it back to the states where it belongs?
That is exactly what the mandate was on November 5th. And that's why I brought up the fact that the 7 Democrat senators, whoever they are going to have a problem with that. And I guarantee you this is going to be a fight. I do think it should be at the state level. I do think that we should make those decisions here and not in Washington, D.C. Test scores have actually worsened. The figures you saw this morning on, if you were watching the news, $80 billion of spending, and how is it actually positively impacting our kids? The one thing that the Department of Education says, well, we wouldn't be able to fund school lunches if we didn't have the department. I think that's nonsense.
Yeah.
I think we can fund those lunches. I think we can take care of kids who are hungry. And by the way, I have a huge heart for kids who are hungry.
Yeah, really.
And we can still do that and not have the bureaucratic red tape surrounding it.
That's right.
President Trump has said this repeatedly. I know that this is going to be an issue we're going to run into with those 7 senators. That's why I wanted to set the expectations.
Why did you say 7 senators?
53 Republicans, yet it requires 60 votes in the Senate. And you need, so we got to have seven people who come over. I'm not saying it's impossible.
Yeah, I want to bring up, I've asked you before, the crooks that they need to go after, y'all need to go after, that it's been brought up before, but we have not seen any results, especially the congressmen that have 7 or more DWIs, not one day in jail. Congressmen, senators, they have not paid one day for their sins. But yet we, the small people, get nailed. I have not had 1 inch of anything. But yet, if I was to step out of line just one little bit, I get nailed hard. I'd lose everything. But yet they get paid millions of dollars, and all the crap they do, and Hunter Biden gets nothing. I'm done.
That basically represents 4 years of town hall meetings. And I hear you. And I think the American public agrees and spoke on November 5th. That we don't want special treatment as Americans, we want fair treatment.
Right.
That we don't want one politically elite or elite class and everybody else that we all have to follow. No, we want this to be a uniform representation, a uniform application of the rule of law. And unfortunately, there hadn't been. Our job in the legislative branch is to write the laws and come back and tell you and get feedback for what those laws are. And in the judicial branch, they're responsible for prosecuting those. The executive branch carries out the laws. I'm excited about our AG nominee from Florida, Pam Bondi.
Amen.
Because I think in blue cities, especially blue cities, that they have weak DAs who don't prosecute. They go after this guy on the subway that's trying to protect, the innocent bystanders, and yet they won't go after the violent, gang-affiliated, cartel-affiliated, illegal aliens. They just don't do it. So whether it's politically elite or whether it's blue cities with lack of a backbone, I think Pam Bondi's about to change that. I think she's about to shake up the DOJ
God, she
and
does.
say, we are going to prosecute the laws evenly, uniformly. We're going to apply the standards to everybody. It doesn't matter. I will point to one bright spot. Menendez. Y'all know this guy in New Jersey. Senator, the gold bars. Okay, he's like, no, I didn't take anything. They go look in his coat pocket and he's got gold bars in there.
Yeah.
Now, I will
Heard
say
about that.
that they did convict him of that. He did drop out of the Senate race. So both politically and criminally, that it's a start.
Did he go to
It's
jail?
a start. I think that sentencing is about to happen. So I hope he does. But when it comes to the uniform application of the rule of law, we haven't seen that in a lot of places. And I'll specifically point to blue cities and states. But I guarantee you here in Tom Green County, we haven't. Judge, thank you for what you do.
Amen.
Thank you for applying the rule of law here. But I think we do that here. You just don't see it in other places. That's got to change. That's part of the mandate. We can't have two tiers of justice. You saw today that they dropped the election interference law. We can't have politically motivated a judicial system that is politically motivated. And that's going to be the biggest change. And that will have a down, if you want to call it down ballot, an effect all the way into the local communities. And hopefully these DAs that they refuse to prosecute some of these violent offenders, they'll get the message.
Protect the criminals.
That they're protecting the criminals. We've got to get back to protecting the citizens, protecting Americans. Kelly?
More of a comment. I'm extremely, as the people in this room are very pleased that you are the chairman for the Republican Study Committee, because what a great representative, not just for all 175 congressmen, but for your hometown. You know, you're a high moral character, salt to the earth, and we all love you. That being said, I also want to say thank you to Darcy for her prayer, because you have clearly explained to people that it's not just you, the August Pfluger team, that passes laws, writes legislation. It takes the House and it takes the Senate. And these are some of the things that some of the women in this room answer questions about all the time. They can only go so far. They have to have senators that do their part, and vice versa. So I thank you, and we're going to keep our boots on the ground and work hard to support you throughout the district and the state and the nation. So thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
We all know all the lawfare and how the Dems tried to sabotage Trump in 2016. How are you going to counter that? Because you know, I believe they were forming a shadow cabinet and all sorts of rubbish. How are we going to get around that so we can get all this good stuff done?
How do we counter the lawfare? How do we counter, this is the beauty of our country, is the fact that we did have an election. We did speak loud and clear. And if we think this is going to be easy, it's not. It's not going to be easy. Just repealing some of the harmful things that have happened to the Permian Basin through the EPA is going to take legislation, it's going to take lawsuits, and it probably takes the President of the United States not just signing things into law from our desk, but communicating it and getting the point across. By the way, Lee Zeldin, y'all know Lee Zeldin. You heard his name. He ran for governor of New York. He almost won. He was a couple of percentage points away. He was named as director of the EPA. I hope I was the first congressman to text him, congratulations. And I have invited him to come out to West Texas to visit us. I said, I want this to be your first visit. We are going to have to be extremely diligent because there is an undercurrent in Washington, D.C. of people who've been there too long, who are just focused on their own jobs, and they're not there to represent all of us. They're there to represent the jobs they do. They're protecting their jobs. And they are the ones that I believe have been the agents of lawfare, that have used the law to be weaponized against us in the form of regulations. And we're going to fight it. And this is what I'm excited about. The DOGE effort is targeted at this. It's targeted at bringing this. Elon Musk can't abolish the Department of Education. He can bring it up. He can recommend that we do certain things. Vivek Ramaswamy. They're going to do that. They're going to look at these things. But ultimately, it's going to have to come to us, the power of the purse. And y'all want us to have that discussion in Congress, not from the executive branch. They can bring it up, make the recommendations, and we need to pass that into law. That's our role. Yes, sir.
Speaking of things, what about accountability for some of the spending, say, Ukraine? They'll just spend $100 billion in 2020, I think, with no accountability at all, none at all. And I wonder also if there's other two-edged thing, the compound, Homeland Security and the sanctuary cities. What about not funding sanctuary cities? There will be, I think they already are, in violation of the law. Do you have to pass a law to enforce a law?
Isn't that sad?
Yeah, I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah. Well, we did pass legislation this year that said if you're a sanctuary city, okay, but you're not getting federal funding. We did pass that. That if they said, and let me be clear, sanctuary city saying we are a place where we're not going to listen to federal law with regards to ICE or deportations, or if you're an illegal alien, you're safe here. That's what a sanctuary, that's the definition, okay? We did pass legislation this year. Do you think Chuck Schumer took that up and passed it in the Senate? No.
What would
No.
happen to Chuck Schumer for not doing that?
Well, nothing. Absolutely nothing. We sent it to the Senate. This is why flipping the Senate was so important. Now, we're going to pass that this year. And by the way, we're going to pass the SAVE Act, okay, which says that if you want to vote in this country, prove your citizenship. Okay? If you're a sanctuary city, San Francisco, okay, fine. But don't call asking for bridges or anything else, because you're basically saying that you're not going to follow federal law. We've got to get back into balance. We've got to get back into balance. And the first part of your question was on accountability for money. How about the REINS Act? Let me introduce you to my friend Kat Kammick, Congresswoman from Florida. Okay? She's young, she's energetic, and she is the author of the REINS Act, which says $100 million and above, anything that comes from the White House, Republican or Democrat, doesn't matter, if it reaches $100 million, has to be ratified by Congress. We have to approve that spending. That's where we're going to get back into balance. Yes, sir.
How does the Republican Party feel about term limits?
Term limits. I asked my wife, she's for term limits. Let me ask you, I'm fine with term limits. As long as those who are in the bureaucratic red tape making business in the agencies and the departments have term limits. I'm 4 years in. That has flown by the way. I mean, I'm just now learning the departments and the agencies. Elon Musk in this Doge effort, it's going to take him 4 years to figure out where we need to cut. So I'm fine with term limits. But let's apply them evenly in DC. Not just elected officials. Yes, it would be great. But you've got a number of bureaucrats who have been there for 35 years.
Yeah, that's
The real issue, and I think about this from a fighter pilot standpoint. Y'all are lucky. I didn't even say fighter pilot for the first 55 minutes. The real issue at heart here is the balance, what I call the Article 1 project. Article 1 of the Constitution picked the favorite branch, which is the legislative branch. It's my branch. And we've got to get back into balance where we're writing the laws and not the executive branch. Because right now it's those bureaucrats who've been here for 35 years. Y'all, I saw it in the Pentagon. 4-star general walking by. And then you've got a person that's been there, a bureaucrat that's been there for 35 years. I'm not saying that we don't need civil servants. We do. Okay, we do need civil servants. But what we don't need is that person looking at that 4-star and going, you'll be gone in 3 years, and I'll still be here. That's where we get messed up. And identifying those positions and making sure that we get back into balance is what we really need. I'm fine with term limits, but let's apply it to everybody, every agency, everyone evenly. That is harder than it sounds. By the way, I'm not going to be here for 25 years. Okay? A specific issue, but it's really important for our national security. If you haven't heard of undersea cables, that's okay. But these are the cables that transmit fiber and the things that help us communicate. And guess what? Who has an interest in cutting those cables? And cutting off our communications here and with our military and with our commercial ships? China does. Chinese Communist Party does. And so we don't get very much credit for undersea cable legislation, but I am leading on this issue. But it's important because the sabotage that you see out of the Chinese Communist Party, whether it's with telecommunications here, they have transmitters and receivers on our cell phone towers that have the ability to spy on us, or whether it's cutting undersea cables, is for the purpose of increasing their power, increasing their influence. And especially in the Pacific, those first island chain islands that they want to control, they want to decrease our situational awareness in every aspect. They want to increase their influence. So they're paying people, paying countries, saying, we'll put up your telecommunications, but there's a catch. There's always a catch with the CCP. And the catch is, if you don't do exactly what we say, they're going to cut you off. And they've done that in a number of places. Our military, our Blue Water Navy, is out there in the first island chain in the Pacific trying to keep the shipping lanes open on a daily basis. And this little piece of legislation that I have on undersea cables is a signal to the Chinese Communist Party that we're watching and that we're going to protect them. And that the sanctions that will result if they do an act of sabotage or some sort of, the cutting in this case, that we're going to come after them. We're going to name the entities, we're going to come after them economically, and that there's going to be penalties. It's one small part. Your question is much bigger. How do we maintain our influence in places like Palau and other places? There's probably many different opinions on Kevin McCarthy, but let me tell you what he did. He established a truly bipartisan committee to study the Chinese Communist Party, to recommend legislation that would strengthen us against the Chinese Communist Party, economically and militarily. He did that. I'm not talking about 6 Republicans and 5 Democrats. I'm talking even number. By doing that, we are strengthening our country. He didn't get credit for that, but I'll take up for him in this forum with regards to that question, because that was a really good thing for him to do and to lead on. So thank you for the question. Let me take one more. Actually, I'll take 2. I'll go back to the back. Yes, sir, Joe.
Yes, sir. Hey, what are the Republicans going to do now that you have control of the House and the Senate? What are you doing? What actions are you going to take to keep that control in the midterms and in the future?
I'll answer the question. This is an official town hall, so I don't bring political aspects in. We do some political town halls at times. But I think it's pretty simple. I think good policy is good politics.
Yep.
I think if we deliver on securing the border, I think if we deliver on lowering the rate of inflation, increasing our economic strength, allowing Americans to buy homes, I think if we deliver on rebuilding our military and refocusing on the things that matter to fight the CCP, hopefully we don't need to deter them, but they know that we're ready, that I think the American public is going to look at the Republican Party and go, you know what, you got it right. You got it right. You focused on the things that matter here domestically, on putting Americans first, and you strengthened our country in a way that we all know and want. And as Reagan said in his debate with Jimmy Carter, are you better today than you were 4 years ago? And I think if we can say that in 4 years, that yes, we are better than we were 4 years ago under President Trump, I think we're going to keep going, and there's a lot of work to be done. Let me take one more. Yes, sir.
Congressman, I got a question about veterans. There's been several veterans that from this post, as well as out there, that their confidence in the VA system has been reduced. Only because they either had a bad experience, a bad doctor, a bad this, a bad that. I can't say that because I'm good. But I've had other veterans that are suffering because of that. Medications, the primary care physician, and then also again hospitalized. I don't think that the VA system out here in Big Spring has got enough knowledgeable, educated people that are holding those positions. And there's also, I mean, it's a big old glorified office building out there, not a hospital. Everybody says Big Spring Hospital. Well, they got 1 floor, the 5th floor, that's it. And those people I've seen them, the nurses and people check on them, they're just general practitioners. And they're not full-fledged doctors. Is there something that's going to be changing for veterans in our community and the whole country?
It's a great question. Probably one of the only bright spots that I can see in the last 4 years is some movement in the direction of providing care. And if we can't do it from a facility like Big Spring, which there are great men and women who are working there, and they are doing, I think, a good job of trying to deliver care, but that doesn't always equate to meeting the need. I know Secretary McDonough, he is the current VA secretary. I've got his cell phone number. We talk, and I tell him some of these stories because he needs to hear it. He hasn't fixed everything, and there is more work to be done. There's more work to be done for all the veterans. And if you can't, especially in rural America, driving to an appointment only to find out that it's been canceled, we can't do that anymore. We've got to make more strides and gains in providing care that is on time, easy to get to. Telemedicine is an option. Delivering the medications, at the pace that is needed has to happen. making sure that mental health is being taken care of. Unfortunately, too many veterans are still succumbing to mental health issues. But let me highlight a bright spot here in West Texas for us, okay? And these ladies know that I'm about to do this. So they're telling me, no, don't highlight us. But I'm gonna. Kathy and Karen and Dina, will you all stand up? Because I want everybody to see you. And I want everybody to know that these ladies here, Kathy at the back, Karen, who's the district director and takes care of 6 offices, and Dina, who deals with many, many veteran cases on a daily basis and is the expert in my office on helping veterans. Y'all help me give them a round of applause. I appreciate what they do. We don't have all the answers. The incoming Secretary of the VA is a former congressman from Georgia. You've probably heard his name, Doug Collins. He's got a really, really sharp mind, and I think he's going to look for those inefficiencies. He's a veteran himself, an Air Force veteran himself. And I have full confidence that he will take up the mantle and look to solve the problems. And I promise you, I'm going to get his cell phone number too. And I hope he comes out here to visit Big Spring, to visit our clinic here, which we're really proud of. But there's more work that needs to be done. Y'all, let me end 2 minutes over. That's not bad. Y'all are lucky. Could have been a lot more. I'm really optimistic. Obviously, I'm pleased with the outcome. But you know what? A lot of responsibility now comes with this outcome. But my colleagues and I are up for the task. We're up for the task because this country depends on it. We're up for the task because our children depend on it. And our grandchildren don't want to be saddled with $100,000 each in debt. We're up for the task because countries like the Chinese Communist Party do want to undermine us and are actively trying to do that. And we're up for the task because we signed up for this job because my friends that have come to this country that are first-generation Americans and serving in Congress, literally first-generation Americans, that have lived the American dream, want every other American to be able to live that American dream. And I'm really optimistic because we know our mandate, we have an agenda, and we're going to get to work. And it's going to be worth it. And at the end of the day, what I hope that we can say in 4 years, to Dale's point, is we've done a good job, not just for Republicans, for every American, that we've done a good job. But we depend on your prayers. I can't do it without my wife and my 3 girls, and I can't do it without your support. And it's always good to be here in San Angelo, especially at the VFW. I hope y'all have a happy Thanksgiving. I know our family is going to be giving thanks for the blessings that we have, and I hope y'all will do the same. God bless.